Okay, I think we've done enough in introducing you to this completing the square thing. I tell you what, let's just do this before we go on. What if I said x squared plus um, 8x plus, and then left this blank? What will this be in order to make this into a perfect square? When I say a perfect square, what I mean is this. I want something in parentheses. I want x plus something squared. Okay? So what goes in here? Half of this is 4, and then square it is 16. Do you see it? So now I've made this into a perfect square. What's going to be this thing right here then? This is going to be x plus 4. Isn't that the same thing? Because watch, remember we went the other way, didn't we, earlier? So x plus 4 in parentheses squared is going to be x squared plus 4x plus 4x, which is 8x, right? And then plus 4 times 4, which is 16. So it works. So we're kind of going backwards, aren't we? We're kind of going backwards from this FOIL method. And that's what we're going to do. So watch, what if I had this? What if it wasn't so pretty? What if it was a 7x equals this squared? So let's not use decimals. Let's use fractions, okay? So yeah, let's not even use mixed numbers. Let's use improper fractions, okay? It seems like that's everybody's last resort is to go to an improper. But in algebra, improper fractions are your friends, okay? When you're, I know, but let's just do it like this. So if I take half of this, what is it? It's 7 halves, right? 7 over 2. So do it as an improper fraction. It's a lot easier like that. And then what do you do with that after you take half of it? You square it. So I take the middle coefficient, I take half of it, so 7 over 2. It doesn't come out even, so I just keep it 7 over 2. But then I have to square it. If I square 7 over 2, what do I get? 49 over what? 4. Do you see that? Okay, so what would that equal as a perfect square? Well, it'd be an x, then a plus. How do I know it's going to be plus? Well, whatever that sign right there is, that's going to be a plus right there. Now, what goes in here? 7 over 2, that's right. Okay, so you could look at it two ways. What goes in this number, in this place right here? Either half of this or the square root of this. All right, you get the same thing. So there we go. We've completed the square. We completed it because it was empty at first, right? It was a blank at first. And then we made it into a perfect square. That's why we call it completing the square. Ryan, you getting all this? Okay. Can you see better with your eyes closed? Is that the deal? All right. All right. So now let's go. I think we've done enough. Let's go to this problem that I originally written down. I know you're probably dying to do this problem now, right? Now there's several ways to do this problem. I'm going to do this problem by completing the square. All right. There's actually a little easier way to do it. It's by factoring, but not everything factors. This one actually does, but we're not going to talk about that right now. All right. I think later on they'll do a problem. They'll do it by factoring. But let's just do this. What I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go x squared minus 4x. Now, is this a perfect square right now? It's not. If I took half of this, what do I get? 2, and I square it, do I get a 12? No, I don't. So is it a perfect square? No, it's not a perfect square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 12, I'm going to chuck it to the other side. Now, how would I do that algebraically? Just add it. Right, add it to both sides, so I get a 12 here. So far, is this exactly what we started with? Yeah. But what I want to do, though, is I want to fill that blank place right there. I want to fill that spot with a number that makes it a perfect square. All right? If you noticed, every one of those is always plus, 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 plus at the end, isn't it? All right? So now, how do we do this? We've already mentioned it once already. Look, what do? Take half of this, which is 2, and we square it, which is 4. Now watch this. Remember, this is an algebra problem. We're solving for x. I can't just add a 4 to one side. If I add a 4 to one side, then I have to add a 4 to the other side. Are you with me? You're going to see where something that we did a little earlier comes into play here. I don't know, maybe you see it already? I don't know. Now, what did we just do right here? By taking half of this and squaring it and sticking it right there, that forced it into a perfect square. All right, we just finished doing those, and I just erased it. So now I can write it like this. What's going to go here? X. What's my sign in the middle going to be? It's always this one. Because remember, this one's always positive. So this is the only one that could change. All right, so this one right here is minus, so we put a minus right here. And how do we figure out what goes here? It's either half of this or the square root of this one. You still get the same thing. It's a 2, isn't it? Okay, equals what? 16. Now, does this problem look familiar? It's one of the first things we did today. All right? It doesn't look familiar? Yeah. Okay, it should look familiar. Is it in your notes? Did you write any notes? That'll keep you awake, Ryan.
I'm trying to keep you awake.
Yeah, I'm telling you how. Write some notes. Write something down. If you just sit there and stare, you're gonna doze off. All right. So write some notes, and then when I ask you something, you can refer back to them, and you see exactly what we've done. This should look familiar. You've done something very close to this. How do we solve for x? We get rid of the squared by doing what? Take the square root of both sides, right? So you take the square root of this side, it goes away. I don't need to show the big square root, but I take the square root of this side. Now, when I do that square root, what's the one thing we talked about? Put the what? The plus or minus in front of it, okay? Make sure that you do that. All right, one more step. What do you do to that minus 2? You add it to both sides. So watch, it's x equals 2 plus or minus, right? The square root of 16. But guess what? The square root of 16 comes out nice and even. What is it? It's a 4, isn't it? It's not always going to do that. In this situation, it did. All right? This one comes out nice and pretty. The next one we're going to do doesn't. Yes, absolutely. Okay? We're going to do one next that doesn't come out near as pretty as this one. So watch what you get. You actually get 2 answers, don't you? You get 2 what? Plus 4, which is 6. And you also get 2 minus 4, which is negative 2. So you actually get 2 answers for this. Let's plug them both in, see if they actually work. Put the 6 in. 6 squared is 36. Minus 4 times 6, which is 24, and then minus 12. 36 minus 24 is 12. 12 minus 12 is 0. It works, doesn't it? Let's try the other number, see if that works. Put a negative 2 in for this. Negative 2 squared is what? Come on, negative 2 squared. Negative times negative is positive. 2 squared is 4, okay? Minus 4 times negative 2. So it's what? Right, it's minus negative 8, which would be the same as what? Plus 8. I'm sorry. Negative 4 times negative 2. Yeah, that's right. Same thing as plus 8, isn't it? All right, minus 12. Does that work? Yeah, 4 plus 8 is 12. 12 minus 12 is 0. Do both of those answers work? They absolutely do. Now, do you have to check that every single time? No. I did it this time just to show you that, yep, you do get 2 answers that actually work. And I need both of the answers. If all you do is put a 6, it's going to be wrong. Follow me? So make sure you put the plus and minus. It's very important. All right, that was an easy one. That was actually taken from the problem set. All right, so you get to do that tonight, and I've already done it for you. Let's do the example. The example they give you is a little bit tougher, so let's do that. All right, here we go. There's a lot of things that are a little bit different about this, all right, but just watch as we go through this. First of all, it's not in the form we want. Okay, we want it in that form, x squared, x, a number, right, a constant, and then equals 0. That's what we want. That's not what it looks like right now, is it? But let's do it like that. It's not that hard. 3x squared minus x, let's put this 5 over here on the left, plus 5 equals 0. Now it's starting to look a little bit more like we have been working with. Now, there's one problem about this problem that we didn't talk about before, and that's this 3, this number in front of the x squared. We didn't encounter that on the other example. So what we have to do is we have to get rid of that 3. And how can we just get rid of the 3? Do we just erase it and it goes away? No, we got to do something to both sides. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by 3. And divide both sides, even the right side, okay, by 3. So look what happens. The 3 cancels out, so now I got an x squared. That's my goal. My goal is to get x squared by itself. But look how ugly the rest of it is. Minus, instead of x over 3, I'm going to write it 1/3 x. That's the same exact thing. And then plus 5/3 equals 0. 0 divided by 3 is 0. All right? Looks a little ugly now, doesn't it? Because you got fractions in here. But what we're going to do, this is not a perfect square right now. Think about it. If I take half of this, I'll write it for you because I know fractions aren't your favorite thing. If I take half of a third, what do I get? 1/6, right? And if I square 1/6, what do I get? 1/36. Is that 1/36? No. Is this a perfect square? No. So what am I going to do with this? I'm going to take this and do what to it? Not just throw it away, but chuck it to the other side. You got it? So, and we're going to replace that with a number. And we've already talked about what that number is going to be. So it's x squared minus 1/3 x. I'm going to put a plus. I'm going to leave a blank. I'm going to take that 5/3 and move it to the other side. And so that's going to be a negative 5/3. Okay? Now, let's figure out what's going to go in this blank. We're going to complete the square. That's why they name this thing completing the square, because of this step right here. I'm going to fill this empty spot in with a number that makes it a perfect square. How do we do it? We take half of the middle, we square it, and we stick it right here. So we already talked about it. What's half of a third? 1/6. Square 1/6, it's what? 1/36. Now, if you remember from the other problem, I can't just randomly add a 1/36 to the left side. If I do it to the left side, what? I got to do it to the right side as well. So I have to add a 1/36 to the right side. Now, but look at the left side. It looks a little ugly right now, but we actually turn that into a perfect square. So I put an x right here. What's my sign in between here going to be? It's always that one right there. So it's going to be minus. Okay? Because remember, this one right here will always be positive. It's this one that could change. Now, what do we put right here? There's two ways to look at it. It's either half of this one or it's the square root of this one. Yeah, which is 1/6. Okay? Equals. Now we just have to add those together. Well, find a common denominator. 3 times 12 is 36. Do you agree? So I go negative 5 times 12, which is negative 60, plus 1, because that's already a 36. What's negative 60 plus 1? It's negative 59 over 36. It's just fractions, right? That's all it is. It's not that big of a deal. Now, what are we going to do now? Remember the step? This is a perfect squared. We got a squared here. We want to get rid of it. How do we get rid of it? Square root both sides. So I square root this side, which goes away, and I square root this side. What do you put in front of it, though? The plus or minus. Okay? And then, how do you get rid of this minus 1/6? You add it. So watch, we're almost done. We've got a little bit of cleaning up to do, but watch. X equals 1/6 plus or minus. Watch what we're going to do here. Look at this thing. I want to simplify that if I can. First of all, I got a negative inside of square root, so that introduces something else, but we've talked about that before. So what happens to that negative? It becomes a I, becomes an I, right? A negative inside of square root is an I. So watch, we've got the square root of 59, and then I have an I out here because there was a negative inside the square root. We've talked about that before. Over, do I need to put square root of 36? What is the square root of 36? It's just plain old 6. And there it is. That's my answer. Not the prettiest thing I've ever seen, but that's what the answer is. Now, do you want to take this and put it back in and check to see if it works? Nope, me neither. All right, we did it earlier. Would you believe me if we did all the steps right that that's going to work? Yeah, it will. All right. If you're really concerned about it, feel free, but that will be a real pain to do. I wouldn't worry about it. So hopefully you just go through the steps, and that's exactly how you want to write your answer, just like that. If I went a little too quick on that, I understand. They introduced a few things, like the coefficient in front of the x squared. What do? We divided everything by that 3, because I want that to be a 1x squared. Everybody see that? So if you have a number out in front, make sure you divide it first. Sometimes it will be a 1 already. You don't have to worry about doing it, but sometimes you'll have to get rid of it. What's another new thing that we had to do? Well, they came out as fractions, didn't they? All right, but it's the same process. It's the same exact way that we did it earlier. It's just that they're fractions. Make sure you know how to find a common denominator. If you can't do that, you're sunk. You got to know how to add fractions together with common denominators. Then what do we do here? Square root both sides, put a plus or minus. This is a little different. We saw a negative inside the square root, but that's easy. It just becomes an I on the outside. Took the square to the top, square root of 59, took the square to the bottom, square root of 36 is 6, circle it, and I'm done. All right, now, lesson 10 should be all completed by Monday. Everybody got that? Okay.